good evening, or good morning, or good day, wherever you are. This is Sam, and this is episode 33 of the VictorPrep Vocab podcast. Welcome to you, no matter if this is your first podcast you're listening to by me, or the 33rd. Welcome. Let's quickly get started by reviewing the words we learned in the previous episode. Raconteur, that means a person who tells stories or anecdotes in an extremely skillful, amusing, or witty fashion. Missive, that is a letter, especially a long letter or one which is official, as though it were written by a government. Neologism, that is a brand new word or phrase, some word that perhaps you've invented. And our final word from last time was imperturbable. That means unable to be upset. It means to be calm, to be cool, to be collected. I hope you remembered those okay. Now let's move on to the new words. And our first word is magnanimous. That's spelled M-A-G, mag, nan, N-A-N, I-M-O-U-S, imus, magnanimous. To be magnanimous means you are very generous or forgiving, and especially towards someone who is less powerful than yourself. So let's imagine you were a prince or a general, and you had a war with another general, and you were a more powerful general or had a bigger army, and you won, and the other general surrendered. And in his surrender, you were generous towards him. You didn't take away all his wealth or all his possessions or land. You were relatively generous. You were being magnanimous in your position of power. Another example could be, let's say you're at school and there's another kid who is a rival of yours. Let's say he's a rival for yours on a sports team or something. And he insulted you in some way, and you just forgive him in a rather generous way. That is to be magnanimous, because magnanimous also means to be generous in forgiving an insult or an injury that someone's done to you. So to be magnanimous can also mean to be noble, to be charitable, or to be benevolent. Some other synonyms are big-hearted, princely, altruistic, philanthropic, unselfish, and chivalrous. So, in general, to be magnanimous is a positive trait. It shows that you have a strong character, that you're a noble person, usually. One other thing, I love the origin of this word. It comes from two words, magnus, which is Latin great, and animus, meaning soul in Latin. So magnanimous means great soul, a big heart. So really interesting origin of that word. Our second word is approbation. That is spelled A-P-P-R-O, appro, B-A-T-I-O-N. Approbation. Approbation means praise or approval. Some synonyms are appreciation, admiration, respect, acclaim, or esteem. It's a noun, so you could say you received approbation from your parents for doing well in a test. You received approval or praise for doing something well. So the next time one of your friends or coworkers does something really well, you could show them some approbation for it. Give them a high five, or give them a hug, or tell them, wow, you did great. And then think about the fact that you gave them some approbation. Our third word is adulterate. Adulterate. That is spelled A-D-U-L-T, adult, E-R-A-T-E, erate, adulterate. Adulterate means to make something poorer or worse in quality, usually by adding another substance. So if your father has a bottle of fine wine and you drink half the bottle of wine and fill the rest of the bottle with lemon juice, let's say, you have adulterated the wine. You have made the wine worse or poorer in quality by adding some other substance. And it's generally implied that if you adulterate something, you're adding some worse substance into it. So if you adulterate a fine wine with something else, you're adding something lesser than the wine into it, like lemon juice, for example. Some synonyms are make impure, degrade, debase, spoil, taint, or contaminate. There was recently, well, I say recently, it was in the last few years, some scandals in Europe because they found that some microwave frozen meals that were supposedly ground beef actually had horse meat in them. So you could say that the beef was adulterated. So it was made worse by adding an inferior type of meat to it, that is the horse meat. And our final word today is discrepancy. Discrepancy. That is spelled D-I-S, dis, C-R-E-P, crep, A-N-C-Y, ANSI, discrepancy. Discrepancy means a lack of compatibility between two or more facts. So, if two people are telling you a story about the same thing, and their stories don't quite match up, there's a discrepancy. One person is telling you one story, and the other person is telling you another story. So, there's a difference between the two things, there's a discrepancy. Some synonyms are difference, disparity, variance, deviation, disagreement, mismatch, or dissimilarity. So, let's look at a more concrete example. Let's say you worked in a bar, and at the end of the night, the manager comes to you and says, "Oh, how much did we take tonight?" And he's assuming you've counted up all the money you've made that night. And you say, "Oh, we made $10,000. Then your coworker says, "Well, I counted it up and I think we made $10,500 according to my facts." So there you have a discrepancy. There's a difference between what you think the money you made that night was and what your coworker says. Then you have to try and resolve that discrepancy. So those were our 4 words for today. So let's quickly go over the meanings. Magnanimous. Magnanimous. That means to be very generous or forgiving, especially towards a rival or someone who's insulted you, or also perhaps someone less powerful to you. Approbation. Approbation. That means praise or approval, endorsement or appreciation. Adulterate. Adulterate. That means to make something worse or poorer in quality by adding another substance, usually a substance that's inferior to the original. And our final word was discrepancy. Discrepancy. That means a lack of compatibility between 2 or more facts. So you have 2 or more facts that are saying different things, so they contradict each other. Now, we're ready to do our test sentences. I will give you 4 sentences, each referring to one of today's words. Your job is to use your wits and guile to work out which word I'm referring to. One of my favourite quotes from Oscar Wilde says, "Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much." There was a huge difference between the evidence given by the police and that given by the suspect. The cast was received by the audience with a huge round of applause at the end of the performance. I accidentally added chili powder instead of cinnamon to the cake mix. Needless to say, the cupcakes weren't a big success at the party. So guys, those were our words for today. Please make sure you're making up some example sentences, that you're trying to use your words actively to make sure they become concrete, they become fixed in your mind. Although you may enjoy just listening to the podcast, and it's a really easy thing to do to just listen, please try and be active in your learning. Really try and think about the meaning of the words, think about how you can use them, think of some examples in your life, because I want you to know these words for the rest of your life. I don't just want you to learn a few words for a test and that's that, because words are useful and powerful and great things. So learn the word for your test, but keep the word for your life, I suppose. That sounds really nerdy, but anyway, moving swiftly on. Thank you so much for listening. Please, as always, feel free to email me. I will get back to you eventually, although sometimes it may take a week or more. Just because I've been working super long days recently, till often 11 p.m. at night most days, and weekends too. So, yeah, life as a software engineer, standard. Anyway, send me emails to sam.fold@gmail.com, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.